Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Talking Radio webinar this afternoon entitled ROC Flight Planning for Drone Pilots. And so I used to say ROC for drone operators. I'm just typing a message there. Hi all, and just want to see if you guys are able to see us. We're going to be starting the webinar shortly, so if you are able to see us, it's just my picture on there at the moment. That's not the webinar yet. I see you. Good afternoon. Thank you. We will be, if you can see me, then I'm sure that you can hear me. So if you are able to see me, then please type yes. Let's just type yes in the chat box. And then I'll just make sure that you guys are able to hear me. So this afternoon's, I'll just talk a bit while I'm waiting for you guys to make some entries. This webinar is specific to flight planning for drone pilots, and what we're going to focus on here is what's the purpose beyond filing of a flight plan. Because in our minds as a drone operator, we're thinking flight plans, that's really specific to the aircraft flying on a commercial basis, flying into controlled airspace. When we talk about controlled airspace, we're talking about upper airspace, aircraft flying between, say, 14,000 feet and above. And, oh, no sound. Oh, dear. Okay, none of you guys are able to hear me. All right, just bear with us. I am making an entry here. Thanks very much for all your response, Michaela, Susan. Might be as well. What does happen sometimes with these webinars is there's a slight delay, a slight pause on the process itself. So I'm gonna just keep talking until someone can just type up there that they can hear me. So as soon as any one of you is able to hear me, please let me know. And there we go. I've got Michaela coming through, and Johan Sand is back. Fantastic. Afternoon again, Johan. And Susan from Cape Town. Afternoon to you. And Lawrence. Hi, Lawrence. Good to have you on the webinar. So yeah, it's nice to see some familiar names here in the group joining us. Always good. So what I was saying there very quickly is the flight planning product, what we put together, specific for drone pilots. And why does a drone pilot actually have to have a flight plan? What's the purpose beyond it? So the focus here is to identify with why, or not why, the content of the flight plan specific to the procedure as to what a drone pilot is going to be utilizing this for. Remember, the flight plan tells a story. That's important. So the story is the project. What is your project? What is your assignment? This is what you're going to be doing as the drone operator for a particular task. As the webinar will present, it's a recorded presentation by myself. It will inform you, that to file a flight plan, it has to be, if you're going to fly in controlled airspace, or if you're going to operate above 400-foot AGR. So there's procedures involved with this. So what we're going to do is we're going to go straight into the recording, which I did earlier today, in fact. My voice is not fantastic on this because I've got a bit of a cold at the moment. So I might not sound fantastic, and I might even start coughing now. But if you just bear with the recording, sorry, that's what I mean. Bear with the recording, then we'll follow up with some questions and answers afterwards. Just excuse me for 2 seconds. While we getting ready, sorry, I'm back again. Okay, so while we're getting ready and while we're preparing for this, is there any questions that any of you have which you could maybe put into the chat box or just write it there for us? Let us know if you have any questions that you want us to focus on. I'm not saying you've got to type up one now, But during the presentation, if there's anything that comes up that you are unsure about, please put your questions forward to us, and I'll be able to read them, and I won't answer them obviously during the presentation itself, but I will go to the I'll come to them when we complete. So the flight plan, as I said earlier, it's a story that you are telling, and the story is specific to the project that you are undertaking. The person that's going to read that is primarily going to be someone like an air traffic controller. Say you're going to operate in controlled airspace, and they need to know what is this, what is your assignment? What is the project that you're going to be doing? So your information has to be accurate. The flight plan should not be something that you are trying to put together, at speed, basically. So this shouldn't be something that you're going to look at to do today for a project that you're going to complete today. Remember, as the recording is going to tell you, the webinar needs to be, the flight plan needs to be handed in at least 30 minutes prior to you actually undertaking the project. And the project itself, for the assignment, you've got 5 days ahead of the schedule in which to advise the client, in this case air traffic control, of if you're going to fly in controlled airspace, to advise them of the procedure that you're going to be doing through the flight plan itself. The information is not, as you'll see through this presentation, we're just having some hassles with uploading this presentation, so we might actually just stay on live and I'll just keep talking. Then you'll just have to bear with my coughing, but either way, it's fine. What we have to do is we have to, if you're comparing this flight plan, what you're going to be doing as a drone pilot, with the VFR pilot, visual flight rule pilot, who's going to be flying into airspace, which is going to take them into, higher than 400-foot AGL as such. You'll see that the information that they have to input into their flight plan itself is more detailed, but that doesn't mean that yours must be contain less than what the average pilot would enter. Now, one of the things which you're going to hear and which we need to focus on is coordinates. Coordinates relate to latitude and longitude. So with coordinates, you need to think about, you need to have an aeronautical chart. So you'll be working off of one. My suggestion, if you haven't got one yet, depends where you are in your training and your flight planning, and in terms of the procedures you're going to follow, it's called a 1 in a 500,000 aeronautical chart. So this chart can be obtained from any dealer that supplies, aircraft supplies and equipment for aviation and such. There's a few of them out there. What you do with that is you can study that chart specific to the area that you intend to operate at. The charts are available, well, in this case, it's for South Africa. They're available throughout South Africa. And if you're not sure of that, in the back of each chart, it's got a number sequencing as well. So you could refer to the number for the particular area that you're going to fly at. All right. We're just going to, by the way, Marlene's here with me. She's on IT. She's in the background. She's having real problems this afternoon with playing this. So what she's going to do now, she's going to try and play this recording. It appears to be there. If it doesn't go out, we'll just give it a couple of minutes. If it doesn't go out, we're going to come back to me, and then I'm going to do the live presentation. So good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Flight Planning for Drone Pilots webinar. This is as per the South African Civil Aviation Authority, AIC, dated 005 of 2017. That's obviously May of 2017. And this presentation is specifically for drone pilots in terms of the completion of the flight plan. With the flight plan itself, we are going to focus on the items for each section of it in detail, and Obviously, if you have any queries at the end, you're always welcome to email us. Email is dylan@talkingradio.co.za, and we will gladly assist. So if we look at the flight plan itself, this is an example of what a flight plan looks like. And I'm going to make some drawings on this flight plan before we go into the webinar itself. So this is just an overview. Firstly, the filing of a flight plan. Why do we need to file a flight plan? So as a drone pilot, you need to file a flight plan if A, you're going to be operating in controlled airspace, and B, if you wish to fly above 400 foot AGL, that would obviously be in controlled and or uncontrolled airspace. The flight plan itself is an informative document, and it's informing those parties, such as air traffic control, what your intention is with a particular, say, work assignment, photo shoot, something that you're going to be using the drone for, the purpose of this particular flight. And this is to ensure that there's a bit of pre-planning that's taken place. So that's what this flight plan is all about. This flight plan is exactly the same as what a commercial pilot, a private pilot, any other pilot out there would need to file if they were also going to be filing for a particular flight. They've got, a fixed wing or helicopter pilot has different rules in terms of why they must file a flight plan. So that would be a whole different webinar. For this one, it's specific to drone pilots, and that's what I'm going to focus on. So let's kick off with the flight plan itself. Oh, sorry, before we move on, just want to show you, I'm just going to draw a line here, or kind of make a marking on here. This section of the flight plan that I'm circling now, if you can call that a circle, is advising. What I want to advise you is you as the person completing the flight plan will not have to enter any information there, but over here, just take note of this telephone number 0860 or 0860-359-669. That's a number that you would phone if you were going to phone through your flight plan. In other words, you should be completing a flight plan before phoning it through. This shouldn't be something that you're reading off the top of your head and hoping that the person on the other side is going to fill in the information for you. So pre-planning, once again, is critical. I'm just giving you the telephone number here. There are other various means of filing the flight plan. You can fax the completed flight plan through to the number. It's also on the top of the indicated flight plan, or you can email file to fly at 18S, and they will take you, that's obviously an electronic application. So the process is slightly different, but ultimately the outcome is the same in terms of the entries. That system is slightly easier to enter because you're following a click system, whereas here we're going to be filling it in by hand as such. But if you understand this process, you'll be able to complete any flight plan that you are faced with in the future. I've started off the flight plan here just by indicating, if I just circle it here, this is where you're going to start in the flight plan. Okay, so that's called item 7, and there's a registration that appears in there. So let's just go on to the next slide, which is the opening slide, and it explains each item in further detail. Over here, you'll see your call sign starts Zulu Tango. Now, that's quite important for a drone pilot. Your call sign will always start Zulu Tango. So that's what ICAO has designated as the registration for the drone pilot, and South Africa is implementing that for the drone operator. So Zulu Tango, and then the call sign, which you would obviously get through a registration process that you apply to the South African Civil Aviation Authority, particularly if you're going to be applying for your remote pilot license, and if you proceed further towards your remote operator certification, then that's to be a commercial drone operator. So for drone pilots, remember the first 2 letters are always going to be Zulu Tango. We're not going to explain the ZS and the ZU and everything else that does appear in front on these flight plans. That would be for a flight plan specific to commercial or the VFR, light aircraft, or light sports aviation, etc. Okay, so for this, remember this webinar is specific to drone pilots. All right, so that is, I've written up here on number 7, it says aircraft identification. That refers to the registration of your drone, be it multi-rotor, helicopter, or fixed wing. All right, let's go to the... Okay, so we on to item 8. And in item 8, you'll see there are two parts. Let me just draw a circle for you. So item 8 is the flight rules. And then we've got type of flight. All right. So item 8, you would enter the letter V. V stands for VFR, Visual Flight Rule Pilot. So automatically enter the item, enter V under flight rules. And then in type of flight, which is just at the bottom over here, it says enter the letter, let me just put a circle around it, enter the letter X for RPAS, Remote Pilot Aircraft System, type of flight, or RPA, Remote Pilot Aircraft. So you would enter, sorry about that, let me just rub that out. You would enter the letter X in type of flight. And then if you come down further on your flight plan to item 18, another circle around there, it's entitled Other Information. Now, item 18 is going to contain a lot of information throughout the flight plan for a drone pilot. So you'll make use of, you're going to transfer a lot of information into item 18. Try not to write too big. If you are filling this out by pen, because of the fact that you're going to enter a lot of information there. All right, so just to recap, item number 8, V for VFR, and then type of flight, which forms part of item 8, the letter X for RPAS, with item 18 or field 18, where you will enter the letter STS standing for status. Let's just draw a circle around that one as well. So status / ATFMX, Alpha Tango Foxtrot Mike X-ray, which is the letters which have been assigned by ICAO for the International Civil Aviation Organization specific to RPAS. All right, let's go to the next slide. Next slide is item number 9. Now, number 9, as it says, is number. So that's the total number of remote pilot aircraft that are flying on this particular flight plan. If you are going to be one aircraft, then in other words, one multi-rotor as an example, then you would enter the letters, and I've written 1 on this slide here, but you'd enter the letters 0, 1. You should fill both blocks in, okay? So as to not confuse anybody, it's no good putting 1 in the first block, because that could mean that you're 10. So just remember, enter the letters, the numbers is 0, 1. If there are going to be more aircraft associated with, in this case, Zulu Tango Alpha Bravo Charlie, we would say put 2 over there. And then in item 18, as it says here on the side of your slide, it says enter the corresponding number in this block, and then the registration of each of the accompanying RPA in item 18 of this flight plan under the heading item 9. So you just write item 9, and then the registration of any accompanying RPAS or RPA in operation. All right, next slide is type of aircraft. In this one, you go straight to the 4 letters ZZZZ. You're going to see in these particular types of flight plans for drone operators, you're going to use the 4 Zs quite often. So you enter in type of aircraft, as it's indicating, the 4 Zs. And then you go straight to item 18, other information. You enter the letters TYP, Tango Yankee Papa / and then you refer to the machine you're flying, and as it clearly says there, either multi-rotor, aeroplane, or helicopter. All right, so item 18 is starting to become heavily populated, and we're only on the second section of the flight plan, the second line. So as I said earlier, you're going to put quite a lot of information in item 18. Okay, the next slide says item 9. This one is straightforward. The wake turbulence category is light. I've just added the 4 categories there: light, medium, heavy, and jumbo. In your case, you're flying a machine which weighs less than 7,000 kilograms, and that would put you into the light category. So whether you are less than 2 kilograms, less than 2 grams, or whether you're a 40 kilogram drone, in all instances, you're all going to fall under L4 light, under the wake turbulence category. All right, item 10 is equipment. A bit of information to enter here, so let's just explain it. Item 10 is divided into 2 parts. We've got item 10A and 10B. 10A refers to the equipment that you're using as part of your operation to fly this multi-rotor or this drone. And item 10B, which should come after the /, refers to transponder equipment. This is equipment which you'd have possibly on your machine, which is going to be allow ATC to identify you when in flight. Now, we're not expecting everybody that's flying lights, multi-rotors, 2 kilograms to have this expensive kind of equipment on it. So under item 10B, you'll notice that it says mode C, S, or N. N stands for nil. So under that is a asterisk, and it says that transponders required in controlled airspace except for prior approval as per agreement or if an exemption has been approved by the director. So the prior approval would be an approval that you received from the Central Airspace Management Unit on behalf of the air traffic control airspace, the controlled airspace that you can operate in. Okay, so let's just go through it. Item 10A. Now, as the drone operator, you are required to have a VHF radio and in controlled airspace, maintaining two-way communication with ATC, and uncontrolled airspace, maintaining two-way communication with known and unknown traffic, making broadcasts in that instance. So you would put the letter V under equipment, and then the next letter would be the letter Z. So that's if you have GPS, right? So VHF radio is V, GPS is Z, then /, and let's just say N for November. Okay, so let me, I'm just giving examples. So over here, if we go to item 10, I'm going to enter it for you. We'll say we've got a VHF radio. We are flying with GPS, so let's just enter the Z. And the /, and then the N to say we have nil transponder. All right. Then once again, in item 18, we make the following entry, which I'm going to circle over here. This is reference to the GPS. We will enter the letters NAV, November Alpha Victor, / GPS, Golf Papa Sierra. Okay, so you're going to make reference to the fact that you have, or that you're working with a GPS in that instance. Okay, this particular section, item 10 equipment, gets more technical as you go through your application, or correction, as you move up in the type of aircraft that you're going to fly. So once you move from a drone, say, to a fixed wing or to a helicopter, and then you move from a VFR pilot to an instrument flight rule pilot, you'll notice that the instrumentation that you input into the section will become more. Okay, that's just for information. Let's move on to the next slide. Next slide is item 13. This refers to the departure aerodrome. So where are you departing from? There's two parts to the departure aerodrome. You could be departing from an airfield that has an ICAO designator. And the example I've used here is FAPE, Foxtrot Alpha Papa Echo. That's actually Port Elizabeth, so it's an ICAO designator. So you can see this space reserved for 4 blocks, FAPE. But if you're not departing from an ICAO registered location, you would enter those good old letters again, ZZZZ, in item 13. And then you would proceed to item 18, where you would now enter the word DEP, Delta Echo Papa, and that would be followed by the names and the location. So in this case, I've written DEP / Shelley Mall, and then I've written the coordinates 2304 south and 02612 east. Notice the asterisks again, and it says note only degrees and minutes required, not seconds. All right, so hope you got that. We're going to do the destination now, and it will explain it again. Okay, same type of entries. All right, let's just move to the next slide. Next slide refers to time. So the important part here, for those of you that possibly haven't completed your restricted radio course yet, or not familiar with this, that time is always entered in what is known as universal time coordinated. I've written the letters UTC there. I'll just circle them. And what that means is that time is referenced to GMT, Greenwich Mean Time. So in South Africa, as it says, we take the local time and subtract 2 hours from it. You're always going to do this. We don't have any reference to daylight savings as an example. So it's always minus 2 hours. You subtract it from your local time, and that time is then referred to as Zulu time. So in an example, it says current time is 1300 local time, we minus 2 hours from it, and it becomes 1100 Zulu. Just put a line or circle around it again. Now, when you make the entry into the block itself, so if we depart in at 1100 as an example, then you'd put the, your writing's not so good, eh? So we'd put the 1100 over there. It's quite difficult to write with this program. But we will not enter the letter Z after that. Okay, so that's important. That is your time. There's always reference to Zulu. Just out of interest for you, a pilot needs to file a flight plan at least 30 minutes in advance of a particular flight. So as a drone pilot, you also need to respect that. You need to file your flight plan in advance. It says that you can file it at least 120 hours in advance. That's 5 days in advance of the intended flight. That all makes sense because you need to inform those people you're going to be, or the airspace you're going to be operating in, what your intentions are. So it's not a case of just going out there and filing a flight plan and expecting ATC, air traffic control, to just accommodate you straight away. This also forms part of pre-planning. And good pre-planning would mean you're going to anticipate what your intentions are through the, not just through your approval process, but through the correct information itemized in your flight plan. And that goes for the time of departure as well. All right, so just remember then, for recap, we're working in UTC time, referred to as Zulu time, and then for information, the current time is referred to as local time. Okay, the next slide is your speed and your level. So it's made up of two parts. Item 15, your cruising speed is going to be measured in knots. Now, you'll see there's quite a few blocks over here. So you've got to enter, you've got to complete, or correction, you've got to fill something in each block. The first block will always be reserved for the letter N. N refers to knots, as it's referring to here. So in this case, we would write, let me try and write with this funny pen. So we would write the letter N over there. Then there's one block here, 2, 3, 4. So the first three blocks after the N would be the letters 000, followed by the numbers 2, 5. That would be your cruising speed. Okay, so what we require here is every single block to have an entry in it under cruising speed. The second part of item 15 refers to the level. And in this section, you will insert V for VFR. Let me just think about what I'm saying. Actually, my slide is wrong here. You will insert VFR. So please take note. VFR. Let me just make a note here as well. It is right by saying insert V for VFR, but it shows you that even us guys that have been doing this for a long time, we can make errors as well. But we've recovered. And there it is. We've entered the letters VFR. And then in item 18, you will enter the letters VFR again, /, and you will write the altitude that you wish to operate at. In this example, I've written 400 feet AGL, that's above ground level. So you define the VFR height that you're going to be flying at. You can't just leave it at VFR in this instance, because VFR being standing for visual flight rules could mean you're going to be flying at who knows what height that your multi-rotor can fly to. Okay. All right, so let's move on to the next slide. The next slide refers to the routing. In this section, we want to define what our intention of our, say, our work assignment has been. I've written the word filming box over there, because normally if you're going to be flying your drone, you're not going to maybe specifically be flying it to one location. You're going to fly to more than one. I'm not saying that it's always going to be like it. So if you're only flying to one location, then we're just going to enter the latitude and longitude position for that location. So what I mean by latitude and longitude, we just come down here to the bottom part of the slide, and I'm just circling the coordinates there. So latitudes referring and longitudes referring to your coordinates. Your latitude south, your longitude east, obviously for us here operating in the southern hemisphere. When you enter this, you start with the letters DCT. Let me just do some rubbing here. There we go. So you've got to start with the letters DCT, and then I'll just underline it now, it's easier. And then you start with the degree south, and that's latitude south, and the longitude east. Take a note, when you enter the east coordinates, so that's the longitude, you always start with the number 0, and you are only required to put the degrees and the minutes on the flight plan. And this information you can always double check and see it's all listed in the AIC 005 of 17. you only have to put the degrees in minutes, not the seconds. So in this particular case, this pilot is filling in the coordinates for 3 sectors of the filming box, which means it's going to operate within the boundary of those, or the limit, should we say, of those coordinates. And this information would then, once it's been approved and there's a flight plan, ATC would then, as an example, input these coordinates on their radar, known as a visual display unit, in order that they can identify, let's call it, in this case, it's we calling it a box, but there are only 3 coordinates, so it could be a triangle, and they will draw that picture as such on the radar. So they know where the target, in this case the drone, being referred to as a target, is going to be operating for that particular flight sequence. Okay, so you need to be quite specific here with your coordinates. Writing down names of places you can do as well, like we did just now with the departure aerodrome. But it's no good just the name standing on its own. So if you write in a name and that name has not got a registered ICAO designator, like the one I used just now, which was FAPE, you need to be including the coordinates for that. As a drone pilot, because of the type of flying you're doing, you're going to be using coordinates plenty. So make sure that you focus on this particular subject when doing navigation during your remote pilot license training. All right, let's move on to the next slide. The next slide is your destination aerodrome, very much like your departure aerodrome. In the case of it being an ICAO designated destination, we would put the letters FAGG in this case, which is example for George Airfield. It's not going to be that, but the letters FAGG. Okay, and FA is the letters that have been specifically allocated to South Africa. So that would specify that's a South African registered ICAO designator. And then the last 2 is the area itself. If you're landing at a location not ICAO registered, you're going to enter the letters ZZZZ. In this slide, again, I've said in item 13, but let me just write over that. It's item 16. Okay, so there we go. You're going to enter the letter ZZZZ in item 16, and then in item 18, enter the name of the location, followed by its coordinates. So in this example, I've just used BP Garage, so destination / BP Garage, and then given the latitude and longitude, so the degrees south, and degrees and minutes south, degrees and minutes east, and then I'm just making an asterisk there again, just to reiterate. Note, only degrees and minutes required, not seconds. All right. Okay, let's go on to the next slide. Next slide is your total estimated elapsed time. So EET stands for estimated elapsed time. Now, your general life of the battery fully charged for a drone, I'm just taking an average here, is 20 minutes. So we would put, say 0020. So that's how long this flight is going to be taking you. It could take longer. It depends how many batteries you're going to be using as well for any particular flight. Okay. You just need to make sure that you've calculated this to determine how long this whole flight is going to take you, and this is where you're going to input the information on the flight plan. Item 16 continued is your alternate aerodromes. Please note that the first and second alternate aerodrome boxes are to be left blank for all RPAS operations as defined in ARC 005 of 2017, okay, as we referred to earlier. So a multi-rotor does not enter or input anything into the alternate aerodrome blocks, so just leave them blank. All right, item 18, you've been entering quite a bit of information into this block already, and we just need to expand it further. So let's start with entries that we know to entries that we don't know. So on this particular slide, it's item D, any information related to ZZZZ entries, which we've been doing. We did that for the departure aerodrome as an example, and the destination, and the reference to it. The name of the operator, so this could be you. This means who owns this operation. You normally would, in this instance, be flying in controlled airspace. You're flying under an ROC, Remote Operator Certification. So it would be under the name of the ROC and of the registered ROC, and then the contact details would be for example, the telephone number of the pilot or the safety officer or one of your members of the ROC that's affiliated with the process. Date of flight, we normally enter the letters DOF, Delta Oscar Foxtrot, which stands for date of flight. And with the date of flight, you're going to enter the year, the month, and the date. The full year, so 2017 as an example, the month, and the moment it's July, so 07, and the date, so let's say we're going to get airborne in a few days time, 3 or 4 days time, and we put the letters, say 11. Okay, so that's how it must reflect. And then at the top, I've said search and rescue requirements. In the case of RPA operations or RPAS operations, we enter the letters SAR nil. SAR nil stands for search and rescue nil. So in terms of drone operations, the pilot is not with the drone. The drone is self-contained. The pilot's already safe on the ground as such. So search and rescue is not required for the person because they're on the ground. So in terms of search and rescue, it's been deemed that we'll enter the letters SAR nil. All right, so this section of the flight plan, let me just draw a little block over here that we've just completed. This is the bulk part of your flight plan. Okay, this is containing the information relative to who you are, what you intend to do, how long you're going to do it, and where is this going to take place. This last block that we've... All right, so we're busy with the last slide now. This slide's called item 19, supplementary information. And this information is supplementary to the flight itself. So if we look at the fuel endurance, for example, how much endurance have you got in terms of battery power? So if you're using one battery, the average lifespan of the battery fully charged would be, well, not lifespan, but fully charged, that is, would be 20 minutes, so 0020. So be accurate here with, with the amount of batteries you're using versus your total estimated elapsed time for the flight. Okay, so you need to do some research there and make sure that you're accurate. You can't have a total flight estimated elapsed time of 1 hour and you say your endurance is only 20 minutes. It doesn't balance out. The emergency persons on board, you leave blank because you are not obviously on board the drone. It's on its own. So in this case, we leave it blank. As we said earlier, there's one flight plan for all pilots. So this flight plan is not just designed specifically for drones. The webinar itself, what we're presenting, is specific to how a drone pilot would enter information on a flight plan. Emergency radios, you leave blank. So this section over here, we leave blank. And I'm just going to circle V for VHF radio. Remember in item 10, if we just recap, we've entered the letter V there already. V standing for VHF radio. So you already have this equipment on board. It's not necessary to enter it again. You already have it, and you won't have more than that in terms of the operation that you're working with as the drone pilot operator. Survival equipment, as it says, life jackets and or dinghies, you leave blank. You do not carry any of this equipment on a drone for obvious reasons. So you go straight to the color of the aircraft. I've written a distinguishable markings. So those are markings which would be distinct, which is allowing you to identify that particular drone in flight. Now we know most of them are white in color, so you could have, for example, white with a red stripe. It's just as something that we can identify that drone, particularly in controlled airspace. The person is working, say, with the ATC has the binoculars, and they're able to visually identify the color of that drone that's possibly been reported as flying in the area unannounced. Okay, so it's just to give you an idea. Under the remarks section, we leave blank. That's normally when we complete that flight plan, we normally indicate first aid kit and strips, not compulsory, but first aid kit is. In this case, you're not flying with first aid kit on the drone. Your first aid kit is at the site. So as per the ROC requirements, that will be on the ground. But this is what is in the machine, and you do not carry the first aid kit in the machine. Last section is the pilot in command, and well, that's self-explanatory. That is you. So you would enter your name and your surname. Ideally name and surname, not initials and surname, but once again, that's up to you. And that would bring you to the end of the flight plan. That would be the flight plan complete. And Now it's a case of you submitting the flight plan through one of those processes that we've just explained. Initially, in terms of filing flight plan, I suggest that you phone Johannesburg briefing with the number that is on your flight plan and talk to them with the flight plan in front of you and let them guide you through the flight plan where you possibly are unsure of entries, and they will assist you 24/7. So that's a good deal that you've actually got somebody helping you, talk you through it. Thanks very much for listening to this flight plan seminar, and on behalf of myself, Dylan from Talking Radio, we thank you for your time. Any queries, please email me at dylan@talkingradio.co.za, and I'll assist you. Thank you. Right. Thanks, everybody, for listening to that. And so you're welcome while I'm talking with Jan's question. Anyone else wants to add any questions or add value, that's perfect. Jan, the question you said was wherever we need to file the flight plan. I just wasn't 100% sure what you meant by that. I'm assuming that you were asking, like you've posted there on the File to Fly 18S website. Is that where you were referring? Is that you... Oh, yeah, there I see. At least we're just asking, can you guys hear us? I just wanted to make sure that, is that what you were asking, Jan, that you wanted to check? Oh, okay, Michaela. Just stand by. We're just trying to, we might have lost a few of you on the recording, also on the webinar. So can you please just let us know if you guys can hear us, and so that we can continue the Q&A session. We're just, Ollie's just typing a question up as well on the chat box. Okay, yeah, you know, right. So it sounds like we're back. All right. So while we going through the Q&A session, Johan, you had a question which you brought up during the recording, the presentation, and you said wherever we need to file a flight plan. I just want to find out, did you, is the question related to where, as in your second post, you've posted the 18S File to Fly website for the following File to Fly online? Or was it in the presentation itself where I referred to the telephone number? So you got the choice between filing online or filing with through Johannesburg briefing. Was that the question that you were maybe referring to? I wasn't too sure. So I'll wait for you just to respond to that. And while Johan's coming back to us, is there any other questions from the floor? Please, if there is, please just type it into the chat box, and I will try and assist straight away. You can see from the process of the filing flight plan what we just presented, I'm not going to say it's straightforward. It's something that takes a little bit of homework and preparation to do, because you have to really think about the information which you include in for this particular flight. And remembering, if you're going to be on, for example, on the File to Fly website, the system is much easier to use in terms of clicking on the scroll down menu and selecting. But sometimes the information that you're entering, it's A, not accepted by the system, or B, that which you select is incorrect. So be careful of just clicking very quickly and inputting information. If you're following that route, do some kind of a quality control on that document prior to distribution from your side, just as you would if you were going to fill this flight plan, fill the flight plan in and phone through to Johannesburg briefing, because in that sense you've got a quality or QC that's following up, being the person that you. So think of it like that, Stefan. It's a legal document. That's the important part. So when you go to the site take the flight plan, the copy of the flight plan with you, so that you've got evidence that you've got a filed flight as well. And you're not just going to file a flight plan and then go to some area and fly and think, well, am I flying at these coordinates or was it those coordinates? And then you know, it becomes an unprofessional approach to the project at hand. Okay, our next question was from Michaela. She said, will the call sign start with Zulu Tango if the drone is a home built? And thanks for the question, Michaela. The answer is yes. So all drones, and hers is a good question, because if you, in the commercial industry, I mentioned earlier on, it's in that recording, I talk about ZS and ZU. So they are specific to home built on the Zulu uniform side, that would be on the aircraft side. In this case, ZT is for all round drone operations, whether it's a phantom or a home built or custom. So yeah, thanks. Good question. All right, Adam, your long question. Let's go through it. So Adam says, in the case of emergency tactical response, any concessions considered in terms of the half hour prior to flight submission of the flight plan, or how does it work in this case? Let me just read the first part again. In case of emergency tactical responses. Okay, Adam, I see where you're going with your question. So find that emergency technical or tactical response from a aircraft side. So I'm talking about fixed wing or helicopter. Let's talk about emergency medical response. That would definitely be able to be accommodated within that time frame. So ATC does have the capacity to file a flight plan over the air. I think that's what you're also trying to ask. So we as ATC or air traffic control can facilitate the filing of the flight plan over the air. But what you have to also consider is that frequency that they are doing or taking the flight plan through or from you while they're controlling is not the primary frequency for as a telephone would be in the two-way communication. So primarily the frequency is used for control, and the flight plan itself would be secondary. So if the controller is able to manage that traffic dependent on the frequency, or B, ask that pilot to go to an alternate frequency. We use a frequency which in aviation is called numbers. That frequency is 123.45 megahertz. So you could ask the pilot to go into that frequency, dial it in from the tower, and on that frequency he could then take the flight plan. So there is that facilitation for that. And Adam is just adding on, he says, our tactical team responds to an armed robbery which I must track by drone. I would know far in advance of anticipated flight. Far in advance of anticipated flight must be reactive. Okay, I'm with you, Adam. So let's answer that further. Firstly, you're not going to be flying higher than 400 foot AGL in this particular response with the drone. I'm assuming that, so you can correct me if I'm wrong. Secondly, you want to fly through controlled airspace. So what you would need to consider is, as the armed response drone operation, we would need to have a registered ROC, because operating that from a commercial basis. And then B, if your flight is going to be, you feel that, like what happens out there, helicopters that are doing they're doing car tracking, that's going to allow them or require them to fly into controlled airspace. You would then need to have an agreement with that, it's called ATSU, so Air Traffic Services Unit. Your ROC would need to meet with the manager of that air traffic service unit, and there would have to be a what they call an LOA, letter of agreement, for the processes. So you could actually then, through the LOA, you could react and fly through controlled airspace. I'm not saying you're going to always get permission to fly through controlled airspace, because just like with the helicopters that are tracking, they don't just because they're doing a recovery on ATC doesn't just allow them straight through, because it's traffic dependent. But if you have that process in place, you wouldn't need flight plan. So there is a way around it. and that's all legal. There's nothing wrong with that. And that process, if you need more information on that, you can let me know. I know that you are in Cape Town, so I could help you out and put you in contact with the right people and who to speak to. So please advise just in the chat box if you're happy with that answer. If you have any other queries on it, Adam, let me know. All right. Okay, thanks. Michaela's just come back, said thanks for clarification, so that's great. And where's Johan? I'm not sure if Johan is still with us. Marlene, can you also just have a look there and see if Johan is still with us, or maybe we've lost him. If his question was basically just to do with where you need to file a flight plan. So I think I've answered that, and the webinar itself answered it. You can file it telephonically by the fax. Those numbers are listed on the flight plan, or alternatively on the File to Fly website. That's through the ATNS portal. All right, and yeah, we just put up a query there for Jan just to see if he's heard the answer to that question. And coming back to Adam's question, is a very good question with regards to drone operations on the armed through controlled airspace. This has been going on a long time with helicopter operations doing that. So good question, Adam. All right, another one here from Michaela. How many VHF radios will I require for the flights? It says, what does intended distance and flight time influences? Okay, so VHF radios that will be required for the flight. So you obviously, first of all, you only need one VHF radio as the drone pilot, because you are using that to maintain two-way communications. If you're going, I think where your question is going, if you're going to operate on EVLOS, so extended visual line of sight, you will not be operating on the same frequency, and you're not going to specifically be operating on a VHF radio to speak to the other observer that's standing it's standing 500 meters away from your current position. So the radio itself should be used. It's a VHF radio aeronautical. So, and that's what you're getting signed out for as a remote pilot, in your RPL. So that would be used specifically for communications from ground to air communications, or if you're in controlled airspace, from ground to the ATC. To see the second part of your question, does intended distance and flight time influences? I'm just not too sure of where you're going with that question, Michaela. So maybe to me on that. I'm just reading it once more here. Does intended distance and flight time influences? All right. So I think I know where you're going. Flight time would be, if you're going to operate VHF radio, remember VHF works on line of sight communication. So dependent on factors such as the weather, clear skies or overcast conditions, dependent on the operator, the use of the radio, the PTT, your ambient. So let's not maybe say ambience, the environment, because you're outside. So the environment, so that would be other sounds such as the wind and the elements. I think that's the word I'm looking for. That could also affect the range of the VHF communication. Your aircraft operating under visual line of sight is going to be within proximity of the person who's making the broadcast for that drone, either to the traffic in the area, or, as we said earlier, to air traffic control. So as long as line of sight is not affected and you're operating within that area without the requirements of extended visual line of sight, you're not going to have any problems with the communications. So the communications is also then, it's not just dependent on the radio, it's dependent on those elements plus the operator. Kelly, if that doesn't answer your question, the second part, please just come and rephrase the question if you would want me to. And then, yeah, pleasure, Adam. As we said, it was a very good question. We haven't had something like that before. Never even thought of that. What I will do as well is I will to back up what I've said to you in my response. I made a note in my diary, so I'll communicate with the manager myself at the Cape Town Air Traffic Control, just to clarify what I'm passing on to you, and then I will respond to you via email, and then let you know exactly what the answer is. All right, so yes, okay. So Michaela's happy. So we're closing off again. We just going to come up with our special offer again. So remember here, our primary focus is to facilitate ROC, Remote Operator Certification. That's the normal price for the service that we supply. And anybody that's watching this webinar right now, or that registered for the webinar, we had a lot of people that registered today. Not everybody has been able to make it, but everybody's got work commitments. And the good news for everybody that wasn't able to make it is you at 6 o'clock tonight, you're going to get a link to this recording. So you'll be able to view it in the comfort of your home, in your own time as well. So just remember, this promotion is also for you. So if you are interested in finding out more about it, please email myself, or you can to sun.radio.co.za. If there's no other questions from the panel, then I just want to thank everybody this afternoon for partaking, and it's nice to have these questions that get me thinking, and letting us see through those questions that this is a brand new market, and there's so much that is out there with regards to drone operations and commercial drone business in general. So one last question from my side for those of you that are still here before we sign out is there anything that you would like me to put together for a webinar specific to drones and ROC or anything like that? You know, so far we've done the 5-phase process, we've done the observations and general knowledge on drone operations, and then of course today we've done flight planning. So if there's anything that you would like me to consider presenting, please put it in the chat box. We'll be signing off shortly, but we're going to stay live for a while. So if you want to type up something to us, or if you just want to ask a question non-related, that's also fine. And if there's nothing else further from you guys, then I just want to say again, thanks for everybody for your participation. And it will be Marlene and myself signing off from our Port Alfred studio, and we'll catch you on the next